The summer air in Los Angeles shimmered with the heat of ambition. Inside a sprawling, sunlit studio lot on Sunset Boulevard, the first whispers of something extraordinary began to stir. Not just a movie, a scandal. One that would make headlines around the world. But for now, it began quietly, in the silence between two glances. Miley Cyrus had arrived on set for the table read of her upcoming psychological thriller, The Glass Vow. It was a daring project, unlike anything she had done before. Dark, cerebral, with echoes of Hitchcock and Aronofsky, the film centered on a woman who loses her sense of reality after her husband's sudden death. Critics were already speculating it could earn her an Oscar nod. But Miley wasn't thinking about awards. She was thinking about Elias Reed, the enigmatic director whose name was spoken in hushed tones in Hollywood. Known for his genius and unorthodox methods, Elias had spent the last 5 years in self-imposed exile after a controversy surrounding his last film in Europe. He was brilliant, dangerous, and utterly magnetic. Their first meeting was anything but typical. Miley, walking into the rehearsal room, caught Elias alone, deep in thought, gazing at a storyboard filled with chaotic sketches and notes. He looked up, and their eyes locked. She felt it immediately, an electric current of something unspeakable. "Miley Cyrus," he said, his voice low and unreadable. "You're not what I expected." "That makes two of us," she replied. The chemistry was instant. The kind that could either set the screen ablaze or burn everything to the ground. During rehearsals, Elias pushed Miley relentlessly. He challenged her instincts, broke down emotional walls, and forced her into raw, uncomfortable territory. She fought back, sometimes storming off set, sometimes bursting into laughter at his gall. But somewhere amid the chaos, they began to understand each other. There was an intimacy in their arguments, a rhythm in their silences. It wasn't long before the whispers began among the crew. Glances exchanged when they thought no one was watching. A late-night rewrite session that lasted until 4 a.m., with only the two of them in Elias's trailer. The door had been locked. No one knew what happened inside. But the next day, Miley arrived on set with a different energy, like fire running under her skin. "You two are dangerously in sync," her co-star teased during lunch one day. Miley just smiled and said, "That's how masterpieces are made." But it wasn't just art anymore. That evening, after a particularly intense scene, Elias approached her in the makeup trailer. "Come to the rooftop," he said quietly. "Why?" she asked, still catching her breath. "Because I don't want to lie to myself anymore." It was nearly midnight when they met atop the building. The skyline of LA sparkled beneath them. Elias lit a cigarette, offering her one. She declined. The air was thick with everything they hadn't said. "This can't happen," she said at last. "It already is," he replied, stepping closer. The kiss, when it came, was slow, earnest, like two people who had been waiting a lifetime to find the same madness in another soul. In that moment, something broke open between them. And so began the secret affair of Miley Cyrus and Elias Reed. Hidden in plain sight, masked by the production of The Glass Vow. Every scene they filmed was charged with something real. Every line of dialogue held double meaning. They became obsessed, with the story, with each other, with the dangerous high of hiding it all. But secrets, as Hollywood knows too well, have a way of finding the light. And someone had already started watching. The illusion of control is a dangerous thing in Hollywood. For the first few weeks, Miley and Elias danced on the edge of fire. Every scene they shot seemed to crackle with an almost supernatural tension. The crew called it cinematic alchemy. What they didn't know was that the chemistry on screen was born not of performance, but of midnight whispers, of trembling hands beneath script pages, and the feverish glances passed behind monitors. They were living two parallel lives, one under the hot lights, performing for the world, and one in the shadows, barely holding back the storm of their growing obsession. But the camera, as Elias always said, never blinks. A signal in the dark. It started with a photo. Nothing obvious, just a wide shot of the cast and crew at a wrap party for the end of the first shooting block. Taken on someone's iPhone. Posted casually on Instagram. But zoomed in, someone noticed, in the background, Miley's hand was resting just a little too familiarly on Elias's leg. Her eyes locked on his, laughing at something no one else could hear. The account had only a few hundred followers, but the right person saw it and screenshotted it. By morning, the photo had reached the inbox of Miranda Klein, a tabloid reporter known for breaking celebrity scandals before anyone else. She had a history with Miley. Not a good one. And she had a bloodhound sense for buried truth. "What do you see here?" she messaged her editor. "Looks like nothing," he replied. "Exactly. That's what makes it everything." Meanwhile, on set, Things were evolving in ways neither Miley nor Elias could control. Their private language was bleeding into the film. Entire scenes were being rewritten on the fly. Elias added a new subplot about forbidden love and betrayal, so nuanced, so specific, that the screenwriter nearly walked off the project, feeling hijacked. "This isn't the script we agreed on," the writer fumed. "No," Elias said calmly, "it's better." But it wasn't just the film that was changing. Miley was changing. She was waking up earlier, drinking less, spending hours studying her character like she was decoding her own soul. Elias called it dedication. Her friends called it obsession. She wasn't answering texts from her ex-fiancé, who'd suddenly begun calling again after hearing rumors she was seeing someone. She ghosted brand campaigns, skipped charity events, and even canceled a scheduled interview with Vanity Fair, saying only, "I'm not ready to tell the truth yet." And in the rare moments alone with Elias, behind locked doors or stolen in supply closets, their connection deepened. One night, they met in a hotel suite Elias kept under a different name. He never said which. It was 3 floors above the Sunset Tower. The room smelled of jasmine and old whiskey. That night, something changed. It wasn't just sex, not anymore. It was confessions. Fierce. Real names behind the masks. "I'm not who they think I am," Elias told her, lying beside her, their fingers entwined. "They don't know what I've done, what I've lost." "Then tell me," Miley whispered. "Not yet," he said. "But soon." And she accepted that. Because she had her own secrets. Secrets that began to bubble to the surface one evening when she received a letter. Yes, a real letter, not an email or text, slipped under her dressing room door. No return address. Just a single line written in a sharp, blocky hand. "He's not who you think he is. Ask him about Lisbon." Miley stared at it for a long time. Elias had told her he'd lived in Europe for 5 years. But Lisbon? He had never mentioned Lisbon. She folded the note and tucked it into her script binder. That night, they met again on the rooftop. "Have you ever been to Lisbon?" she asked casually, her voice laced with quiet suspicion. Elias froze. Just for a fraction of a second. But it was enough. "No," he said too quickly. "Why?" "Just a dream I had," she lied. But a seed had been planted. The hidden lens. What they didn't know was that someone had placed a small camera inside one of the dummy props on set, a fake bookshelf used in a key scene. It had been there for weeks, hidden in plain sight, and it had captured everything, every lingering touch, every whispered line rehearsed after hours. Even the night Elias had pressed her against the wall behind the costume racks and kissed her like the world was ending. The footage wasn't in the hands of the studio. It was in the hands of someone far more dangerous, Dario Blaine, a disgraced private investigator who had once worked on a case involving Elias's last film, the one that got buried overseas. Dario knew the smell of a buried scandal, and this one reeked of it. He called Miranda Klein. "I have something you'll want," he said. "How dirty is it?" "It's nuclear." Cracks in the illusion. Back on set, the tension was starting to show. Miley began to feel eyes on her more than usual. Crew members stopped talking when she walked into the room. A PA who had always been friendly now avoided her gaze. And Elias had become distant, brooding, snapping at department heads and rewriting pages at 2 a.m. without explanation. They met less, spoke less, but when they did, it burned brighter, hotter, more desperate. "They're on to us," she said one night, breathless after a shoot. "Let them look," he growled. "We're not hiding anymore." But she didn't believe him. Not really. And then came the envelope. Delivered by courier. No name, just her own written in sharp black ink. Inside, printed stills. Grainy screenshots from the hidden footage. One showed Elias with his hand on her thigh. Another captured her smiling up at him, lips parted, just before a kiss. And one was taken in the dressing room. Private. Too private. Attached was a note. "You have 72 hours to tell your story, or someone else will." Her world spun. It was no longer about the film. It wasn't even about love. It was about survival. Because what she didn't yet know was this. The person behind the camera didn't want money. They wanted revenge. The sun beat down hard on the Hollywood Hills the day everything began to unravel. Miley sat in her car outside Elias's house, a discreet modern glass structure nestled on a ridge, half hidden by trees. She hadn't called. She hadn't texted. The envelope with the blackmail photos still lay beside her in the passenger seat, as heavy as a loaded gun. She'd rehearsed a dozen ways to confront him. Angry, betrayed, cold. But none of them felt real. Because beneath the shock and rage was something she hadn't expected. Fear. Not fear of exposure, but fear that maybe she never really knew him at all. When she finally walked up the stone steps and knocked, it wasn't Elias who opened the door, it was his assistant, Joel, startled to see her. "He's not here," Joel said quickly, eyes flickering. "He's in editing today." Miley didn't wait for an invitation. She stepped inside, heart pounding. She hadn't been in his house before. Elias always insisted they keep their private world off the grid. As she looked around, she began to understand why. There were no photos, no personal touches, nothing of him. Just walls of books, cold architecture, and a lingering scent of bergamot and old smoke. A life curated to the point of invisibility. She made her way to his office. The door was closed, but unlocked. Inside, she found a single laptop. On the desk, a leather-bound journal with a thick elastic band around it. She hesitated only a second before flipping it open. The first pages were full of production notes, set diagrams, scribbled monologues, character arcs. But about halfway through, the handwriting changed. The lines became more frantic. Names she didn't recognize appeared again and again. Elena, Marco, Victor. Then one that made her freeze. Lisbon. She flipped forward, pulse racing. "I told her I never went to Lisbon. Lie number 1. I should have burned the footage. Should have buried it deeper. If anyone ever finds out what happened in that church, I'm finished. They'd never understand it wasn't murder. It was mercy." She snapped the book shut, hands shaking. Miley didn't know who Elena was, or what church, or what Elias had done. But she knew, without a doubt, he had lied to her. And not just once. She left the house before Joel could stop her. She didn't go to set. She didn't go home. She drove, blindly, aimlessly, until the city blurred into memory. She ended up in Malibu, at a motel she used to visit back when she was trying to escape herself during the bangers days. It smelled the same: salt, cigarettes, and secrets. That night, she didn't sleep. She stared at the photos, at his words, at the pieces of a puzzle that didn't quite fit together. And just after 3 a.m., her phone buzzed. A text. From a number she didn't recognize. "I can tell you everything. Meet me. Tomorrow. 5 p.m. Chateau Marmot. Room 44. She stared at the message for a full minute. Then, without replying, she deleted it. But she was there the next day. The hallway to room 44 smelled like old money and betrayal. When she knocked, the door opened slowly, and there stood a man she recognized immediately, even though she had never met him in person. Dario Blaine. Former PI. Disgraced. Dangerous. With the kind of eyes that had seen too much and liked it. "You're braver than I thought," he said, letting her in. "I'm not here for flattery," she snapped. "Talk." He poured 2 drinks without asking. Whiskey. Cheap. Bitter. He sat across from her and slid a thin black folder across the table. Lisbon, 2018. Elias Reed. Shooting a film called The Last Widow. Independent project. Low budget. Never released. He funded it himself. Shot it entirely in a decommissioned monastery outside the city. That's where he met Elena. "Who is she?" Dario corrected. She was the lead actress. 24. Brilliant. Fragile. Obsessed with him. They were sleeping together. He swore it was consensual. Then she started having breakdowns. Claimed the film was making her sick. Said she couldn't tell reality from the role. Miley's blood ran cold. She disappeared during the final week of filming. Dario went on. Vanished. No goodbye. No forwarding address. Just gone. Local authorities called it a runaway. But her family thought otherwise. "Her brother hired me." "What did you find?" He leaned forward. "I found a basement in that monastery. Locked. Soundproof. And a camera setup you wouldn't believe. Like he was documenting her descent. Every cry, every scream, every moment she begged to stop. He filmed everything." "No," Miley whispered. "I think she died there," Dario said. "And I think he made it look like she didn't." She pushed the folder back across the table. "You want me to believe he killed her? Why come to me?" "Because you're the next Elena," he said simply. "And he's doing it again. Only this time, the whole world's watching." Miley left the hotel in a daze, her thoughts like a whirlpool. She didn't want to believe it. Couldn't. Elias was difficult, yes. Intense. Obsessive. But not a killer. Not that. But when she got back to her apartment, the journal was sitting on her kitchen counter. She had left it at his house. She never told him she was there. And inside it now, on the last page, in fresh ink, was a single line. "You were never supposed to read this. But now that you have, I need you to understand. I did it for love." She dropped the book. Her phone began ringing. Elias. Again. And again. She turned it off. The next morning, she was gone. No call to her agent. No word to the studio. Her trailer sat empty on set, and Elias, calm on the outside, was pacing like a wolf behind the scenes. No one knew where she had gone, but someone had followed her. And the storm was just beginning. The first headline dropped 3 days after Miley vanished. Cyrus missing? Director Elias Reid under fire after cryptic journal surfaces. It was Miranda Klein, of course. She had the photos, the footage, even excerpts from the journal. Somehow, someone, maybe Dario, maybe not, had leaked everything. And now, the whispers that had once hummed quietly across the lot erupted into a full-blown media firestorm. Reps for the studio scrambled. Press conferences were canceled. Executives issued carefully worded statements. Elias said nothing. For days, he didn't appear in public. His house was surrounded by paparazzi. Protesters gathered with signs. Accusations spiraled across social media like a virus. And then came the second headline. Elena Ramirez's family demands investigation into director's past. He destroyed her. Photos of the actress, young, wide-eyed, radiant, flooded the internet. People began drawing parallels, comparing scenes from The Last Widow with footage from The Glass Vow. The way Elias blocked his female leads. The repetition. The emotional unraveling. A pattern began to emerge, and with it, a question. Had Elias Reid been casting women not to act, but to break? Through it all, Miley remained silent. Invisible. Ghosted from the world. Until one morning, in a small town outside Big Sur, she walked into a diner barefoot, wearing an oversized hoodie and sunglasses. She ordered black coffee and oatmeal. The waitress recognized her instantly but didn't say a word. Miley left a $100 tip and a napkin scribbled with a message. When the wolves circle, light the match first. She checked into a remote cabin under a pseudonym. No internet. No reception. Just paper and a voice recorder. There, she began piecing together what she knew and what she didn't. The moments on set that felt real. The confessions Elias had whispered when he thought she was asleep. The time he said, "You remind me of someone I couldn't save." The way he had looked at her during filming, not with love, but with control. She realized something terrifying. He hadn't fallen in love with her. He had cast her. Every scene, every touch, every late-night rewrite. It had all been a careful manipulation. A performance not for the screen, but for him. He hadn't been making a film. He'd been building a trap, and she had walked right into it. But Miley wasn't Elena, and she wasn't going to disappear quietly. She contacted Dario. Against every instinct, she called him and said, "If we're doing this, we do it on my terms." He agreed. They met at a motel in Santa Clarita, far from cameras, far from everything. She brought the journal. He brought a hard drive. "I have the full footage from Lisbon," he said, handing it over. "But I never watched it all. I couldn't." "Then I will," she said. And she did. Every second. Every frame. And when it was over, she was shaking, but not from fear. From rage. Elias hadn't just destroyed Elena. He had documented her undoing with surgical precision. Voiceovers. Music cues. Even whispered monologues. He had crafted her suffering like a composer scoring a symphony. Miley looked at Dario. "We're not leaking this," she said. He blinked. "What?" "Not yet. Not to the press. Not to the studio." He wanted an audience. "We're not giving him one. We're giving him something worse." She made a plan. First, she returned to LA quietly. No media. No announcement. She called in a favor from an old friend at Netflix, someone she'd helped once, back before Hannah Montana ended. She asked for a space. A private screening room. One night only. "Invite everyone who matters," she said. Critics. Directors. Producers. Festival chairs. Every single person with power. And she sent Elias an invitation, too. Black envelope. Gold seal. No name. Just a single phrase on the card inside. The final cut. He showed up. Of course he did. Wearing black. Unshaven. Haunted. He walked into the theater like a man facing his own execution. The lights dimmed. What played on the screen wasn't The Glass Vow. It wasn't even a film. It was a confession. Miley had edited it herself. A brutal, stitched-together narrative of Elias's manipulation, from Lisbon to Hollywood. Elena's breakdowns. Her own footage from behind the scenes. Hidden audio she had started recording the moment she began to suspect him. Voice clips from the journal. Quotes. Visual parallels. She narrated it in her own voice. It ended with silence. Then a quote. You can't gaslight a woman who's learned how to burn the whole house down. When the lights came up, Elias was gone. So was Dario. The room sat in stunned silence. Until one of the studio heads stood and said, Jesus Christ. The fallout was nuclear. The studio suspended production indefinitely. Investigations were launched. Netflix canceled Elias's contract. Streaming platforms pulled his previous films for ethical review. And the Academy? Silent. For now. But Miley didn't care about awards anymore. She went home. Alone. Quiet. Finally, truly free. Or so she thought. Because 2 weeks later, she found a letter in her mailbox. No return address. Same sharp handwriting. This isn't over. You were always more dangerous than I expected. But even wolves get hunted. She stared at it, heart steady, and smiled. Because she had already written the final part of the story. The sky above Los Angeles was choked with smoke from a wildfire creeping in from the east. But inside the small loft in Silver Lake where Miley now lived, the air was still. No bodyguards. No managers. No cameras. Just her, a guitar she hadn't touched in weeks, and the letter that arrived like a ghost from Elias's past. This isn't over. You were always more dangerous than I expected. But even wolves get hunted. She read it again, slowly. Not because she feared him. She didn't. But because she needed to feel every last syllable. This wasn't a warning. It was a promise. And it meant he wasn't done. Not with her. Not with the game he'd started long before they met. She didn't report the letter. Instead, she waited. She lived with the knowledge that she was being watched, followed, maybe even recorded again. She left her blinds open, sat near the windows at night. She wanted him to see her unafraid. She wore the fear like armor. Elias had counted on her breaking. But he hadn't realized that the girl who once danced in glitter and wrecking balls had long since learned how to survive the fire. A week passed. 2. Then came the anonymous text. Desert. Tonight. 10 p.m. Come alone. You want the real ending? Finish it yourself. No threat. No demand. Just an invitation. A challenge. A twisted director's final scene. She drove. Out past Joshua Tree. Into the vast nowhere. The desert stretched for miles, silent and waiting. Her car headlights cut through the dark until she reached the coordinates sent to her phone. A dilapidated gas station long since abandoned, its signs swinging in the hot wind. The kind of place that didn't exist on maps anymore. He was there, standing beside a rusted-out payphone, dressed in a white linen shirt and black jeans. Calm. Still. Like he was in control again. Like he believed the final act belonged to him. You came, he said. Of course, Miley replied. You always loved a good finale. He nodded, as if pleased. I thought about what you did. The film. The screening. You were clever. Cruel too. You exposed everything, and yet, I'm still standing. Not for long. Is that why you're here? To finish me off? He smiled faintly. Or are you still not sure who the villain is? She stepped closer. You really think you're the victim in all this? I think we were both playing characters. You just became better at pretending. She didn't answer. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a flash drive, the only copy of the unedited Lisbon footage. She held it up in the moonlight. This is the real ending, she said. He tensed. You didn't destroy it, he said slowly. Even after everything, I wanted to look into the eyes of the man who destroyed Elena. The man who tried to do the same to me. I wanted to give you one last choice. He stared at her. And if I don't take it? She dropped the flash drive at his feet. Then I released this. Worldwide. No edits. No narration. Just you. Unfiltered. He didn't move. Or you take it, she continued, and you disappear. For good. You vanish the way Elena deserved to. No comebacks. No more art. Just silence. A long moment passed. The wind picked up. He bent down, picked up the drive. He looked at it for a long time. Then at her. You win, he said. No, she replied. Elena wins. He walked past her without a word. Into the darkness. She didn't look back. By the time she returned to L.A., the sun was rising over the hills. She sat on her balcony, watching the city light up. The letter was still on her table, untouched. She lit a match and burned it. Let the ashes drift away on the wind. The next day, she returned to set. Not the glass vow. That film was dead. But something new. Something she would direct herself. No more hiding. No more roles written by men who wanted to possess her. When asked by a reporter if she would ever speak publicly about Elias Reed again, she smiled and said only, Some stories are better left buried, but the women in them never are. And she walked away. Behind her, Hollywood was already writing a new script. But this time, Miley Cyrus was the one holding the pen.